Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about how to call out sick, even if you may not be sick. My name is Don Pippin, and I'm an executive and HR leader for Fortune 50 and 500 companies and startups, and Zippia has asked me to present to you. I'm going to be guiding you on your career path in the name of Zippia and help you write the best resume, get a job interview, and get hired. If you want to read more, please visit us on zippia.com. Let's get started. All right, so calling in sick is just part of the work experience, right? I mean, we've all had to take a day off, whether it was because we're legitimately sick, we need a mental health day, we have errands to run, something came up last minute, or maybe you're just burnt out and you don't like your job, so you're thinking of any reason to call out. But what if your boss doesn't believe you? In the case of liars trying to play hooky, what if your boss sees right through you? For some, these questions pop up every single time they ask for time off. And in their defense, it could happen. Your boss just might not believe you, in which case you could be in hot water. So how do you ask for time off without looking like a liar, even if you absolutely are one? So we're going to go through some tips to help you navigate this potentially dangerous situation and get you the day off that you deserve. Or perhaps the one that you don't. No judgments here. So what are good and bad reasons for calling in sick? We're going to go over 3 good reasons and 3 bad reasons. And it should go without saying that not all of these reasons are as good as the others. But here are a few examples when you're calling in to your boss. So 3 good reasons. 1, if you're contagious. If you're all likely to get your coworker sick by coming into work, it's imperative that you stay home, even if physically you feel mostly okay. If your sickness is causing you discomfort to the point that you can no longer perform your work duties, regardless of how contagious you are, or if your symptoms of your illness would be particularly disruptive to your coworkers, such as vomiting, severe sneezing, coughing, etc. So what are some bad reasons? If your illness is neither contagious nor particularly disruptive of work duties, in those cases you're typically expected to soldier on. If your illness is somewhat artificial or self-inflicted, such as a hangover or something similar. Or if your illness or its symptoms are entirely fictitious. Again, you really want to avoid lying if you can. All right, so what's a mental health day and why do we bring up this topic so often in this conversation? So sometimes we just need time to recharge, and that's okay. Sometimes that can be wrapped into your sick days and personal days, depending on how your company packages paid time off. But if your employer doesn't offer personal days, then your only choice is to call in sick. So while these steps are very similar and may not change from the previous steps that we discussed, there are some modifications and additional things you want to keep in mind when you're using mental health day as a reason to call out sick. One is you're not going to tell them that it's a mental health day. So you want to keep it brief. And the reason is bottom line, you're lying, and it's always best to minimize the things that you can get caught on in these situations. So just say that you're calling out sick and prepare yourself with some short answers to questions that they may have for you. Another thing is don't give yourself away on social media. I know this should go without saying, but people will go online and post that they're at the beach or they're at Disney. You don't want to do that, especially if your colleagues or your boss or your company follows you on any of your social media pages. So don't be silly and post evidence of your lie online. Another is don't brag about your deed. Even if you have close work friends, you never know who would snitch on you or just slip up and mention that you were actually not sick that day. Another thing is to just avoid the call entirely. So it's harder to lie over the phone than through an email or text. I noticed over the last 10 years, Most people, if they reported directly to me, would end up texting me that they weren't coming in. And to be honest, I preferred that because I wouldn't have to listen to these long voicemails of people who are clearly not sick, trying to either sound sick or give me long explanations that I did not need. So if you're going to call out sick for when you're not sick, if your company policy allows it, send an email or a text. Keep it brief and just let them know you won't be in. That way you don't have to risk saying something that may get you caught in a lie. If your company requires you to call in sick, then maybe do it early in the day when you know your boss isn't going to be there to leave a message. I actually have done that myself when I was working once and I didn't want my boss to pick up. So I purposely called in before when I knew that they would not be there. The other thing is consider the timing. Are you going to be calling out sick on a Monday, Friday, or around a holiday? I promise you that will 100% always seem suspicious. So you want to minimize your chances of being assumed a fraudster by selecting a random workday to call out sick. I also want to point out that it is very common in a lot of company policies that if you call out sick the day before or after a holiday, specifically a paid holiday, you will lose the paid holiday time. So a caveat to that policy is you have to work the Monday before or the Friday after or the day before or the day after a holiday. So if you call in sick around a holiday, you may end up losing on your holiday pay. So you want to weigh that when you're making your decision. And the last thing is offer to make up your work. So let your supervisor and the rest of your team know that you're dependable and you're going to work extra hard if you have to take the time off. So again, make up your work. Several example messages for calling out sick or emailing can be found at zippia.com. But I'm going to go over one when you're actually not sick. So here's a sample message that you can say to your boss. Hello, Joanne. I'm calling/writing to let you know I have a sore throat and I'm feeling achy. I'm not sure if I'm contagious, so I think it's best I stay home today. I'll be on Slack and can help process requests for the marketing team as needed. I'll be back in tomorrow if I'm feeling better. Thanks. So in this instance, you may not be sick. You're offering to be on Slack. So if you are offering, you need to make sure that you're there. So whether you're on Slack at the beach or you're on Slack at Disneyland, you want to make sure that if you're going to put this into a message, that you're actually available to them. And that you have the resources with you that you can quickly respond and do the work that you've actually stated you would by being out that day. And again, to see some more examples, just go to zippia.com and there are at least 2 more that you can review there. So before we get into the best practices of how to call in sick, I want to make sure that you take into consideration that when you miss work, that means that the work may not get done. So if you can't do the work and there's no one else that you in your company that can do the work in your absence, then that work is going to be waiting for you when you get back. Both of them aren't super positive. One is you're pushing your responsibility and burden onto someone else. And when you put yourself in the shoes of your coworker calling out sick, how does that make you feel? So you want to be cognizant of that before making the decision to call out sick if you're truly not sick. But it's never your fault if you're actually sick. And it's always possible that your absence will nevertheless have a negative effect on someone you work with, depending on the nature of your work. So these are the best tips when you're planning to call in sick. The first one is you need to let them know as soon as possible. If you wake up and you're not feeling well, then follow your company protocols for calling out, whether it's calling a dedicated phone number, reaching out to your boss through email, text, or phone call, or even a Slack message. But make sure you go by whatever your company's requirements are so you're not violating any call-off period. The second tip is you need to keep it short. You don't need to provide every single detail about what you're doing. In fact, when you start rambling on about why you're sick and why you can't come in, it makes us question whether or not you're truly sick. So keep it brief. Just let them know that you are ill and you're not going to be able to come in that day. The third, in addition to notifying your boss, if you can, also let your team know. So if you have a text thread of your coworkers, if you're in a small department, or if you have a small team that you work on, try to be a good employee and let your teammates know that you're going to be gone for the day, especially if your job is with a group project and it's a collaborative effort. Fourth, try not to lie if you can help it. We'll go into good or bad reasons in a moment for calling out sick. But bad reasons give someone for missing work, it's an outright lie. So eventually people are going to catch on and they're going to hold it against you once they do. If you really need to take the day off, but you aren't sick per se, then it's usually better just to say so. And number 5, offer to make up the lost work however you can. If you're well enough and the work can be done remotely, offer to work from home. Otherwise, make sure that there's some sort of plan in place for the work getting done either later on or else by someone else. So in today's world, as we're coming out of this pandemic, remote work is popular. So if you're not feeling well, you're not at risk of causing anyone else in your office to get sick, which is the main reason why if you're physically ill, you don't want to go in. You maybe have the opportunity to work from your bed or work from your desk at home or your home office. So see if that's an option for you. And number 6, follow up. If you need to provide proof of your absence, be sure to do so. However, if you're just taking a mental health day, don't use the doctor note worthy sickness as your excuse, or you're going to be digging yourself into a hole. So should you take sick days when you aren't sick? The short answer is yes. We all may need a mental health day at some point. At some point in your work life, you're going to wake up nice and healthy, but for whatever reason, you're going to have a strong urge to call out sick. There'll be no good reason why you shouldn't go to work that day. At least no reason that your boss is likely to accept. But maybe you've been healthy all year. Perhaps it's been a while since the last time you took a day off. And maybe you just really, really don't want to go in. Is it a good idea to use your sick days for personal days? Well, it honestly just depends. So what is your company policy? How does your company classify time off? Is it lumped in between sick days and vacation days? In which case, calling in for any amount of time off is pretty much the same process. If this is the case, then you really don't need to lie about being sick. After all, the process will be pretty much the same either way. What is your track record? It's also important to know if you're the kind of person who already takes sick days frequently, whether for real, imagined, or outright false reasons. The more time you take off, the more likely your boss is to find it suspicious that you're doing so for illegitimate reasons. If you genuinely need those days because you are sick, using them for no good reason will only bring you trouble. Your boss's personality. You also want to keep in mind what your boss's opinion of mental health days are. Some people believe that they should be classified as being sick days, while others think they should be vacation days. And lastly, know the risks. Above all, just bear in mind that using sick days for non-sick reasons is a risk. How big of a risk depends on you and your personal work situation, and your decision to use sick days in this way should be calculated accordingly. And I just want to remind you that I'm going to be posting videos with tips and tricks every week, so please subscribe to our channel to keep up with what's going on at Zippia. So some final thoughts. There are 2 things that you want to keep in mind when planning to call out sick. The first is knowing your company's policy towards sick days and what they recognize as a sick day in the first place. And the second is, what is your relationship like with your boss? especially if you've already taken a lot of sick time. But in the end, if you are planning to abuse your company's sick day policy when you're not sick, my advice to you is to do it. Playing hooky rocks, and it will make you look cool to all of your coworkers. And don't worry, they will definitely not grow to resent you or your increased absence, or they won't even notice that your social media is blowing up on those days off. Anywho, best of luck to you. So again, I want to thank you for watching me today. And next week, we're going to be talking about how to respond to an interview request. And just to remind you, you can also visit the link in the video description for reading more about the topic we discussed today. And also you can ask questions under the video. I will be answering them during the week. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Until then, bye.